You're listening to Trek FM.
This is Steve Sansweet of Rancho Obi-Wan, and you're listening to the 602 Club.
There was a little bar in Mill Valley where all the Starfleet trainees used to go.
The 602 Club.
You know it.
I was there more times than I can remember.
The new, superior Death Star. Soon it will be complete. With its destructive power at our command, we shall crush the rebels once and for all.
Meh.
Meh?
Meh! Don't get me wrong, Lord Vader. I'm all for ruling the galaxy. That's my thing. But you remember what happened to the first Death Star?
Yes. I was there.
Oh, right, you were. Let's go to the replay.
Is this really necessary? I have you now. What?
Yee-hoo!
You're all clear, kid.
Now let's blow this thing and go home. I have you now. Gets me every time.
Nobody could have anticipated that.
Perhaps you can see why I might want a plan B, Vader. Dooku always had a plan B.
How's that?
Nothing. Continue. Impress me. He's not going to impress me.
Master, we recently uncovered something of interest in the Jedi archives. The Kyber Saber.
Ooh, Emperor likey. What's it do? Don't care. I want it. Gimme.
One small problem.
Here it comes.
We don't exactly know where it is. But our forces are scouring the galaxy. The Kyber Saber will be found.
It better be, Lord Vader. And soon.
Welcome, everyone, to another supplemental episode of the 602 Club. I am your host, Matthew Rushing, and I'm really excited to be here tonight because we're going to be talking about something that I have really gotten into over the last, I would say, couple of months. And to be able to talk about the subject, I needed an expert. And so that meant that I scoured the internet. Well, I didn't really have to because he's a friend of mine, and he does the one and only podcast out there that is actually devoted to the subject we're going to be talking about, which makes him unique, which is pretty crazy in the Star Wars podcasting community. And we're talking about none other than Aaron Goins of Star Scavenger Podcast, a Lego Star Wars podcast. Man, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Matt. Wow, expert, no pressure.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're the only one that's doing a podcast about it, you have to be the expert, right?
Nah, that's never the truth. I mean, and I'm not the only one. I have a co-host, too. Anyone can podcast about anything,
yes,
so it definitely doesn't make someone an expert.
That is true.
But
you do have a wonderful co-host, so which we should shout out to, Jonah Marie Macias. And so you do it together, but you still do the only show that's devoted specifically to, well, what we're going to be talking about, which is the Freemaker Adventures.
Yes, the only one I'm aware of, I will say. I'm not, who knows? There could be another one out there, but yeah, I think we're the only ones that I'm aware of that are covering the show, but we're really happy to do it, and I'm excited to talk about it with you tonight. Yeah,
me too. Well, and we don't want to offend anybody if you have, recently just started, then welcome to the community. We're glad that more people are talking about this show, because honestly, more people should be talking about this show. So just a quick reminder for everybody, you can find all the shows we do here on Trek FM at iTunes. Over there on Apple Podcasts, we're a feature provider. So hit us up at itunes.com/TrekFM. And while you're there, we're doing a review contest right now. I'm trying to give away to some people really exclusive Guardians of the Galaxy swag. So go review us on iTunes, the 602 Club, and you could win. Just make sure your review is in by June 2nd. And then you can find us on Twitter at TrekFM, Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. We have the listeners-only discussion group on Facebook that's called the Babel Conference. If you go over to Facebook, type Babel into the search field, and you'll find us. If you're on our website at trek.fm, you'll find us there too. Just hit discussion on any of the menu bars on any of the show pages, and that'll bring you over there. And then last but not least, if you have something that you really want to talk about with us here in the 602 Club, and we love this, getting emails, go to trek.fm/contact, choose a show, choose the 602 Club, and that'll come straight to us. So, Aaron, there have been some other Lego shows, right? And there's been other Lego things that Star Wars has done, because, I mean, I guess for me, I kind of really got into the games. So I just kind of want to talk about Lego for a second with you, because I know we're both kind of Lego geeks. What got you into Lego, and then what made you transition in thinking a show that's kind of, you would think maybe, oh, that's a kid's show, you know? What brought you to the Freemaker Adventures?
Well, like any kid that grew up kind of in the late 80s into the 90s, Lego was just part of your childhood. You know, that was one of the type of toys that just was around. I grew up with, there were 5 of us, 5 boys in my family. So we had a lot of Lego. We had a lot of G.I. Joes. We had the typical toys that the kids from the 80s and 90s grew up with, which I'm sure you can relate with. So when it came to Lego, I mean, it was definitely not a thing about collecting yet. It was more about just playing with toys. And we had a decent number of sets when I was a kid, but we weren't much about keeping them together. You know, you build it once and then it gets broken apart and it never gets put back together again. It just ends up in a big box of Lego. And so that was kind of just a big part of my childhood. But recently, I would say within the past year or so, I've kind of, I went through a phase like in the 90s, late 90s, when the Star Wars Legos came out, Star Wars Lego.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
Yeah. With kind of the re-release of the original trilogy leading up into the...
Can I ask you something, Aaron?
Yeah.
Were you as angry as I was as a kid? Well, not really a kid. I was a teenager at that point, and you're like, why couldn't they have put these out like 10 years ago when I was a kid?
But it's better when they come out when you're an adult because you actually have money. Right?
That's true. But, you always get to ask for it from Christmas and stuff. I just remember having that reaction. I was like, if I had had these Lego sets as a kid, I would have been in heaven.
Yeah, definitely. So Lego didn't always have Star Wars. So when it came out with Star Wars sets, that kind of got me back into buying sets as an adult, very young adult. You know, when those sets came out, I was still just in my late teens, early 20s. So I still didn't have the expendable money yet. You weren't at that point in life where you could just go out and buy a Lego set. You had to decide if you're buying a Lego set or buying like a meal, when you're in college.
Yeah, or gas stuff for your car,
right. But recently in the past couple of years, with, I guess with Star Wars being reinvigorated with the new movies coming out and all of that, it got me back interested into Lego again. And this is kind of a revival of Lego for me. So I've been recently really getting into not only buying new sets and building new sets, but actually going back into my parents' house and finding that big box of old Lego and getting that box out and seeing what old sets I can recreate. And that's been the most fun part. Is I've found that I'm actually more interested in recreating the classic stuff than I am in buying the new stuff.
It's very funny, and I love that we're getting a chance to actually just like geek out about Lego for a little bit, because if people got to peek at our like private messages together, they would see a lot of pictures of sets that we've built or things that we've created recently, and we're both pretty much the same age. I mean, I think you're 1 year younger than I am, and it's hilarious to me that we've kind of gotten back into Lego. But that's one of the fun things about Lego, and it's why I loved it as a kid as well, is it's so creative, and it's an outlet for your mind in that sense. And it's something, and it's a toy that's actually worth investing in because it lasts forever. And you've got kids now, and so you get to pass that on to your kids, and they'll pass that toy on to their kids, because it just, most of the pieces are made to last as long as possible if you take care of them. And I'm right there with you. I actually have that tub that used to be in an ammo crate, but I transferred it into a sealed tub, a plastic tub that has all my Legos in it, and it's huge, and it's totally full. And I've been doing the same thing that you have, with the revival of Star Wars just being so massive again and them creating these incredible sets. I've started to invest in some of those sets, and it's been a lot of fun. I mean, for one, as a collector and a fan, the only place to get the Ghost was in Lego. They don't have, a toy version of that anywhere. So things like that have happened. And, I got the U-Wing and Poe's X-Wing. I've got a Rebel, I don't know what they call it. It's like a Rebel transport from Star Wars Rebels that came with Ahsoka as a minifig.
Yeah.
So that's really why I bought it.
And that's the thing with these sets is a lot of my decision making on what sets I'm going to build. It's all about what minifigs it comes with. I want to have, if Ahsoka comes with that set, I don't care about the ship itself necessarily, but I think that's probably why they put Ahsoka in that set, because they're like, no one cares about this Rebel transport, but if we put Ahsoka in there, people will buy it. They know how these collectors are, that we're looking for certain really cool, unique minifigs. So, yeah, I've been a lot of the sets you just named, U-Wing, X-Wing, that stuff, are sets that I bought as well. I just recently got the Sarlacc pit, and I'm actually in a really rare position because normally I'm looking to buy the next set. I have that itch. Once you finish a set, you need another one. But for whatever reason, because of timing of, events in my life, I actually have like 3 sets of Star Wars Lego that are just unopened that I'm waiting to build. I have the Duel of Fates one with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Darth Maul. I have I have a Y-Wing, and what's the other one? What else do I have here? Oh, and then the Phantom. So, those 3 sets, I actually they're sitting right next to me right now in sealed boxes. So I'm actually very excited about the fact that I can just open up a box of Lego tonight if I wanted and build it.
That's awesome. I'm so jealous because that Y-Wing set is outstanding. I really want that. It looks so good, and it comes with Admiral Raddus. So I mean,
and that's like,
does it get any better?
Like you were saying with with Lego, sometimes you can get unique things. Where else are you going to get a little an Admiral Raddus? Lego is it's cool where they have. Who would have thought that you'd ever get a minifig of Admiral Raddus and Moroff and all these random background characters,
Absolutely. I felt the same way when I bought the Phantom 2, from Rebels, and it comes with minifig Thrawn.
Right.
And I was just like, yes, this is awesome.
Main reason I got that set. You need the minifig of Thrawn.
Absolutely.
I don't even have an action figure of Thrawn.
I actually I found the action figure.
Did you?
There's a Star Wars store here in the Portland area, and it's all Star Wars toys. And the guy is really good at getting a hold of those really hard to find figures. And he had the Thrawn for a cost, not the jacked up prices you get at a comic book store, but just like what you should get at the price. So it was wonderful. Lego has so many. In fact, there's a set that's coming out that I can't wait this summer, and it's it's a Rebel tank. No, not a Rebel tank. It's the Republic tank, and it comes with minifig Ayla Secura, and I'm like, I totally have to have that. It's minifig Ayla Secura. I can't not have that set.
And that's from like Attack of the Clones. That's
absolutely.
They're still making sets. Like I was just saying, the one from the Phantom Menace. So. It's not like they're only building sets based on the new movies coming out. They're going back and getting some of the greatest hits, and they're always upgrading. You have the old original Han Solo minifig that came out where he's yellow like everybody else was yellow, and then they started doing the skin tone, so you get a new Han Solo with kind of the plain Lego hair, and now they have a new Han Solo with the actual more textured, detailed hair. So there's always an upgraded version of the thing, like the X-Wing set.
Yes.
The original X-Wing set was so basic, and it would be awesome to have it because it's a classic set, but it's a really basic build, where now the X-Wing sets are so detailed and they look so much like the ships that you see in the movies. Lego just continues to improve and improve.
Right, and I was thinking, and then you can get old Han from, The Force Awakens when he comes with the Millennium Falcon, so it's like you can have Han in every iteration.
Yes.
What's funny and what's interesting, Lego really took off again, too, for Star Wars, because it wasn't just the sets started to come out, then they had the video games, and that kind of recreated Star Wars for all of us fans. in this lovable Lego, and really, it's the Lego sensibility. They created their whole new way of telling stories that I can only think of it in that it's the Lego sensibility. That there's a Lego way of telling a story. And they have their own sense of humor in it and everything. And those games came out, and then, of course, they started doing the specials, the Yoda Chronicles and whatnot. And it's like they've just continued to build until you got to this point with the Freemaker Adventures. And, I think one of the things that I want to do with this show is kind of destroy the misconception that this is only for kids. So I wanted to ask you specifically in that, like, what was it about this show that kind of got you into it, that drew you to it first, and then have kept you watching and then creating a podcast about it? And, it's also helped fuel your fandom in incredible ways, whether it's your first cosplay at Star Wars Celebration to, reigniting and helping drive your love for, the Lego toy in and of itself.
Yeah, it is. The thing is to remember with a lot of these shows is it is for kids. But the key word to take out is only for kids. It's not only for kids.
Absolutely.
It is designed for children. These shows, especially a show like this, it's even aiming at a younger generation than something like Rebels is. But because of the themes of the show and the heart of the show, adults can also appreciate it and watch it with their kids. The humor is the type of humor that's very clever, that type of thing. But kind of rewinding, I guess, to kind of answer your question fully, when they first announced that there was going to be a new Star Wars animated series, and they were talking about Freemaker Adventures, they hadn't revealed what it was going to be yet, and we knew it was coming, and then they announced that it was going to be a Lego show. I will admit I was very, very disappointed, because I'm a huge fan of the Clone Wars, huge fan of Rebels, and I really wanted there to be another animated series like those shows. So when they said Lego, I was like, Lego. We've seen the Lego stuff that had come out previously, and although I will say that it's been very well made, very well written, some really funny stuff, it was always just parodies of Star Wars, and it wasn't a story. It was kind of retelling stuff we'd already seen, or really parodying, Yoda or whoever they're portraying. They're doing these very parody versions of them, and it was fun to watch, but it was something I never really got into. And so when they said there was gonna be more Lego Star Wars, I was like, okay, Lego Star Wars, we've seen it, whatever. So when it actually did come to Disney XD, I really wasn't that interested. I figured I'd watch it because it's Star Wars. Star Wars fans like us, we intake. They put Star Wars on it, we're probably going to watch it. We might not love it, but we're going to watch it. So I figured I'd watch it eventually, but I wasn't that excited about it. But I did decide to go ahead and sit down and watch a couple episodes after that. I think they released like 3 episodes in the first Saturday that it came out. And I decided to sit down and watch it, and I was pleasantly surprised. It was a different type of Lego Star Wars that I had never seen before, where they were establishing characters and a storyline that wasn't just a parody of stuff we had seen before. And so I think that's really what got me hooked, because it surprised me. I had come in with such a negative attitude about it, and then when I watched the first couple episodes and I find myself cracking up at this robot, this droid named Roger, and this family, and everything that they were portraying on screen was so much deeper than anything they had done with Lego Star Wars before. I was like, this is different. This is a different kind of Lego. So yeah, I was excited about it, and I was excited, my son being the perfect age for it. At the time he was 4, now he just turned 5. So he is the age range they're aiming for with this show. Maybe a little young, but he's pretty much close to what they're aiming for. So it's perfect for me as someone who enjoys Lego, who enjoys Star Wars storytelling, to share this with my son. So yeah, I was hooked pretty quick. It took just a couple episodes to really get me on board with this show.
It's really funny. One of the things that I've loved about getting to know you over the last year, specifically more intensively as we met in Dragon Con and everything, is how similar we are sometimes. And that's exactly the same attitude that I had when the show first started. I was like, oh, really? Just like more Lego? But those, I mean,
we're the stereotypical fanboy. Like we're the
exactly.
we're the problem, Matt.
Sometimes we are.
We try to be,
absolutely.
and the thing is, it's about being an evolved. In my mind, I always think of it as being an evolved Star Wars fan, because we do tend, I think guys that are kind of in our age range, who are kind of right in the middle of, we didn't necessarily grow up with the original trilogy because we were a little young, but we found Star Wars through other, either as, our parents had it on TV or we picked up a book or a comic. People in our generation of Star Wars fans typically found Star Wars differently. We didn't find it with going to the theater to watch the movies. We were just too young.
Yeah, we usually found it just watching it on TV.
So by the time the prequels came out, we were too old to get the Jar Jar stuff and to get the little Anakin stuff. We wanted, when Phantom Menace came out, you were 20, right? Ish.
Yeah, I was 20, 21.
Right. So you're in that young adult. You wanted a grittier, darker Star Wars. What a lot of the guys that are kind of in our generation did. And so I think that's kind of that fanboy mentality. We're the ones that, everybody gets kind of mad at. They're like, oh, shut up, you stupid fanboys, and I think that we're the ones that are maybe the hardest sell when it comes to some of this kind of stuff.
Well, and that I think you're absolutely right to kind of call that out. And it is one of those things. And for me, I had to realize, and part of the thing that I've done in the last few years is kind of really study George Lucas and read a lot about him and read a lot of his own interviews and things like that. And if there's one thing that George has been very consistent on about Star Wars from the very, very beginning, it's that Star Wars is for kids. And he's legitimate. He legitimately said in very early interviews, it's for like 12 to 14-year-olds. That's the age range, And so when we forget that's what he's aiming for, and that's what the aim of Star Wars was for, I think you're absolutely right. We kind of lose some of that wonder and excitement. And I think what I like about you is that, and what you said earlier is that, but I was going to at least give it a shot, because of the type of fan I am, I kind of want to consume everything. And so I'm going to at least give it a shot. And we ended up loving it. Like, when the first episode, I watched the first episode, and the Emperor is harping on Darth Vader, replaying him the trench run scene. And then Darth Vader says, I have you now. And the Emperor's like, oh, wait, go back. That's my favorite part. I have you now. Go back. That's my favorite. It's a type of humor. Like it knows how to make fun of Star Wars and at the same time love Star Wars in the same breath. Like, by making fun of it, we're also loving it. And they just do it so perfectly. But not only that, but I think, even the setup for this show is this Jedi Knight created a Kyber saber, which is made out of a full Kyber crystal, and discovered that it was so destructive that he smashed it to pieces, and he gave it to Jedi Knights to hide over various areas of the galaxy. And we find that this boy, as you talked about, this family, the Freemakers, well, Rowan apparently is force sensitive, and he can sense these crystals, and so this evil semi-Sith Nare, who's working for the Emperor, realizes this is the case, and she's using him to try and find these crystals. And that's the thing that I wasn't expecting, is that the show was going to create basically its own little mythology in this part of the Star Wars galaxy, and it takes place between episodes 5 and 6. And I don't even want to talk about whether or not it's canon because I don't care, because it doesn't even matter. This show is so much fun that I legitimately don't care whether it, quote-unquote, fanboy happened or not in the universe, because it's just too much fun to even care about that. And I think that's the thing that I really latched on to personally with this show, was that I was having such a good time watching it, and it felt like every episode was a celebration of all the things that make Star Wars fun, exciting, and worth watching all at the same time. Like, it feels like a Star Wars party every time I watch it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. It's funny how you were talking about, you don't care if it's canon. That's something for me, kind of talking about trying to evolve as a Star Wars fan, is that used to be so important to me. If something was canon or not, I wanted to know if it was canon, where did it fall in the levels of canon, all that stuff used to matter so much. And you do evolve as a fan, and you realize in order to enjoy Star Wars as Star Wars grows, Star Wars isn't always going to be for you. It's going to be, there are going to be stories that you're not going to necessarily be interested in. There's going to be characters that are not meant for you to like necessarily, but someone else does like them. And so I think that's all about kind of evolving as a fan. And Freemaker Adventures is a perfect example of something that maybe in the past I wouldn't have really liked, but because I have much more of an open mind about these type of stories now, like you, I don't care if it's canon. I don't care if it's canon now. Maybe 10 years ago I would have cared more, but now all I care is that it's a fun story, and every time I tune in, I know I'm going to laugh. I know I'm going to care about the characters, and I know I'm going to learn something from it, which is funny to think about as, this story that is really meant for kids. Not all of kids' TV right now has meaning, where it's teaching kids good lessons.
Absolutely.
And every time I watch this show, I'm like, wow, that is such a cool lesson that they're teaching with this story, that I want my kids to watch it. No offense to SpongeBob SquarePants, but my kids aren't getting that if they're watching SpongeBob SquarePants, They're getting it through this show, though.
Absolutely. And it's funny, on Aggressive Negotiations, John Mills and I were talking about that idea of, because we were thinking about, George creating Star Wars and saying that his goal was to teach moral lessons that he felt like kids were losing because they were losing the mythology and they weren't really being taught those moral lessons. And I absolutely agree with you. This is entertainment, but not just entertainment for entertainment's sake. It really has these wonderful messages of family, finding who you are, what you're good at, and applying yourself. One of the things that I really like about the show is how Rowan grows as a character and in the Force, and it's not an easy thing, like he struggles with it, and things aren't just easy for them, but they find a way to make it through, and they find a way to make it through together as a family. And I think that's a great message. And so this is really a show that it's for kids, but it's just as enjoyable for adults. Think about your favorite Disney movie and as an adult and all the jokes that you get that your kids don't. That's exactly what this show does. And not only that, but this show is, I think, when talking about the fanboy thing, Aaron, this show should drive fanboys out of their minds with joy because of all the references that they put in to these obscure Star Wars things. So that the people behind this love Star Wars. I mean, let's just call out the fact that it's the wheel that they live on, and that's from an old RPG game from way back in the day. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that they do. For kids aren't going to get that, but fanboys who have been fanboys since 77 and, they're going to get that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And they throw it in for them who are watching it with their kids. And so I think that's the thing that makes it so special, is that you can tell that the people who make this show, they really do care and love Star Wars just as much as we do.
Oh, definitely. And I've been lucky enough to talk to the guys, Bill Motz and Bob Roth, who are the executive producers, and much of the writing and storytelling is stuff that they do as well. And they're the nicest guys. They love their Star Wars. They love their Lego. They're the perfect guys to be doing this show. And you can see once you get to meet them and get to talk to them why the show has the heart that it has.
Yeah, we were at the panel with them at Celebration for season 2, and I think it was just like it just oozed off the stage the Star Wars love that was coming off of everybody up there, from Bill and Bob and Leland Chee and Matt Wood, and I mean everybody that was up there. Michael Kramer, who does the music too, was there, and you know everybody was just, it was like a Star Wars love fest, and everything they were putting on screen showing us what was going to come in season 2 was stuff that you just knew they were drawing from all these different sources, and I think that's what's so fun about the show. And
and I was so happy to see that they got a season 2. I was really nervous about it.
Yes.
Not even just as someone who has a podcast about it, so it's kind of like, well, we need more content so we can continue the podcast. But just as a fan of Star Wars, I was happy to see that this show succeeded enough to get a second season, because that means that they're willing to make more things like this. Maybe Freemaker Adventures runs its course after a couple seasons, but they do another Lego Star Wars show in the same vein that does a different story with a different group. I think because of the success that we've gotten so far with this one, it's a bright future, hopefully, for more of this type of stuff. The people that are involved in the show deserved a second season. I'm so happy that they got it. And from what just the little that we did see at Celebration, we actually did see a full episode. Plus, we got to see a lot of concept stuff. It looks like they're really they're taking it up a notch, more than they did with the first season in some of this storytelling and characters. And I'm super excited to see where they go with it. So, I mean, who would have ever thought that some of my favorite characters in Star Wars would be Lego-based characters? I never thought that would be the case. I know like the Yoda Chronicles introduced some characters that were new and unique, and people became fans of whatever his name was, Zek, and that whole thing. Mm-hmm. But this, like the Freemaker family, they're some of my favorite Star Wars characters. Roger is one of my favorite droids in all of Star Wars. I never would have thought that would have been the case when this show first was announced.
I don't know. I think you're discounting Ram and Bash. They were just so funny, Aaron. I think you should really give them some love, because they get their feelings hurt.
Ram and Bash. Graballa the Hutt, Ram and Bash.
Yes.
Durpin and Plume Striker. They have built this cast of characters who I never knew I needed to see in Star Wars, but I don't know what Star Wars would be without them.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Perfect time to just talk about our favorite characters. And honestly, I think we're going to just talk about them all because they're so good. One of my favorite characters is Wick Cooper.
Yes.
The nasty, super rich, D-bag who comes down to the Freemakers place just because it's cheap, and he's the rich dude who's just super cheap and loves to take advantage of everybody he can, and he is such a jerk, and yet he's so funny. When they're on Naboo, and he runs in the front of the line, and he's like, Palpatine's #1 fan. Excuse me, Palpatine's #1 fan. And he's at his museum. He's like, I'd like the super, super wonderful extra deluxe package. And if there's something better than that, I want that. He's hysterical, but each one of these characters has something that you kind of latch onto and love. I had no idea I was going to love Dengar so much.
And they use them so well because they do have all of these characters. There were only how many episodes of the season? First season, was it
There are 13 episodes.
Yeah, so you have 13 episodes, but somehow within that 13 episodes, they not only focused on the Freemaker family, so you have the main crew of that, then you have Norre, you have the Emperor, you have Vader, all major characters that kind of are part of the main storyline, but then you have all these other characters that are just side characters who are so funny and get just enough screen time. They don't overdo it. They use Ram and Bash just enough. They use Cooper just enough. It is amazing to see the skill in everyone that's involved in the creative process in the show. Is the skill in the storytelling where you can love characters like Durpin and Plume Striker, But those characters only show up every once in a while. They don't need
Yeah.
to be in every episode.
And the fact that they keep recurring. So Durpin and Plumestriker are two Imperials, and Durpin is fully committed to doing nothing, to having the job in the Empire that requires nothing of him, where nothing happens, and he either gets promoted or demoted throughout the series because of the different things that the Freemakers do. And it's just so funny, his relationship, because Plumestriker is on the other side. He's really committed to his leader, Durpin, but he also really wants to climb the ladder of the Empire. And Durpin doesn't want that. He just wants to sit down in a place that's quiet with a cup of caf, as he says, and do nothing.
Yeah, me and Jonah Marie in our podcast were talking about Durpin and kind of my hopes for the character. My hopes is that he eventually defects to the rebellion because he thinks that's a way to get away from responsibility. And then the rebellion puts him in a really, a big high position where he has more responsibility. Just that would be the ultimate, I think, end for that character, is that he ends up with the rebellion with even more responsibility than he had on the Empire.
Like he's responsible for all of their inventory or something, so he's constantly busy. Yeah, that would be awesome. So the main characters we have are Xander Freemaker, Cordy Freemaker, and Rowan. And Xander and Cordy are the older brother and sister to Rowan, who's the younger, Force-sensitive character that we mentioned. And one of the things that I really liked about the relationship between them is the way in which, Rowan is kind of the classic ADD kid who, and I can relate because that's what I was as a younger person, but my parents were pretty supportive of me, and I never went on medication for it. They just put up with it and found a way to handle me, and that's the way that Xander and Cordy are with him. They lovingly take care of him and encourage him in what he's good at and help him grow and mature in these things. And I loved the way that they're telling the story with these three characters, because it is really fun. It's very true to life and very much this family. And yet it's, I like you said, they kind of became some of my favorite characters in Star Wars, and they're Lego characters.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things about the show, is that it is so family. It's about family. It's about loyalty, family, being a good person, being a builder as opposed to someone who destroys things. It works perfectly with something like Lego, where it's all about building things. And, they have these life lessons in the show where it's about being constructive, being a builder. And I think it works perfectly for uplifting storytelling. And I always respond better to that type of storytelling where, I like stuff, to be gritty and dark and edgy sometimes. It can't always be, happy, happy bubblegum stories all the time. But there is something about a story about a family that's so close-knit, and you can tell they really care about each other. Even Roger, who is a droid, is part of this family and cares about being part of this family. And I think it's such a good example for kids that watch it.
When Rowan makes Roger relive every time he's been killed by a Master Jedi Knight, whether it's Mace Windu or Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Kit Fisto, that's the funniest thing ever. Because then he's having that showdown with Nare close to the end of the series, and Roger's like, I showed him everyone. Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and the trump card, the ace that he pulls out, and Mace Windu. And I was just like, okay, that is just awesome.
Oh, man. Gotta love Roger.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Who knew that a battle droid would be one of your favorite characters? But they really... And that's the thing that I think I want to call out, especially with the characters and even kind of moving into the episodes that we love. These people who create this show love every single aspect of Star Wars. They love PT. They love the OT. You can tell they even like the sequel trilogy. They like what came in Legends books and stuff, because they're pulling all of this stuff to tell all of these fun stories. And that's what I like is like you were talking about, that with the storylines with the family and everything like that. This is such a positive experience of Star Wars that just kind of, there's no distinction. There's no lines between PT and, I mean, it's just all there. And they use it all to their advantage fully. And I think that's one of the things that I've enjoyed as much about it as well. So
yeah, they've had, I mean, they get the best cameos. I mean, they've already had Luke, Leia, Lando, Chewbacca, pretty much anyone that can show up, because at the time period it is Han can't necessarily be there. Right? Am I right about that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, they haven't freed Han yet.
Yeah, so you get all the cameos from the original trilogy, plus we get prequel related things, maybe not characters from the prequels because they're not necessarily around anymore, but we get throwbacks to stuff like Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, the Whit Cooper's Naboo Starfighter, so that was a big part of an episode. So they have the callbacks to that stuff, and then now with Rebels, we got to see Hera is going to be in the season. In season 2, Chopper was in one of the shorts. So they're bringing in things from all over the galaxy. So yeah, they're doing a great job with it.
What were some of your favorite episodes from season 1? The ones that you kind of found yourself going back to the most, that you really enjoyed?
So I think the Hoth episode was really cool.
Yes.
The baby Wampa was funny. You have,
my wife, she's not really into this show, but she saw the baby Wampa and immediately perked up.
It's adorable. I mean,
it is adorable. Why aren't they selling them?
We get to see the Freemakers in cool snowsuits. It's always cool to see our Star Wars characters wearing snow gear. And
they always have the Freemaker logo on them too. I love that. They must have a really nice tailor.
It's a really cool jacket, really. I mean, it's got the the nice fur hood, and it's got the Freemaker logo on the front of it. Yeah, it's a great jackets. But that was the episode where Roger could only say the word genius, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a standout episode.
Genius.
The Emperor, so the other one that I think, another standout episode that I'll say, is when they went to the Emperor's museum. And some of the humor in that episode was just hilarious. I was falling out of my chair laughing at stuff in that episode, where the part where the Emperor is talking about how the bathroom is not quite operational, that
yes.
where they did the perfect cadence of how he says it in Return of the Jedi. It was I was not expecting that, and I was laughing so hard when they dropped that line.
Well, and what's so funny is that they're there to find a kyber crystal, and everybody gets sidetracked. Cordy gets sidetracked because, Princess Amidala's dresses! And Xander gets sidetracked because there's a whole room devoted to ships, and of course the N1 Starfighter is in there, and he's going gaga. And then Rowan's like, gonna stay focused. That's not really my thing. Ooh, power buffer.
He's riding a buffer around.
Oh my gosh. It's and then everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And you're absolutely right. It just, all of the inside jokes that they put into the episodes is just incredible. I think that's the thing that I love about, actually, I've watched the season twice now, just because there's so many fun little jokes that you miss the first or even second time. I'm excited to actually watch it again just because I pick up all these little things that they do. And so, no, those are fantastic episodes. I'm trying to think. I think my favorite episode is The Maker of Zoe.
Yeah, that one is a good one because it pulls in the mythology outside of the show, where they're bringing a character from another Star Wars property, or a previous, Star Wars Lego series, where they actually tied it in. That was really cool, and especially for fans of that storyline, to kind of give them something to get excited for about this show. Yeah.
Well, and it wasn't just that. I realized in my second watching that this is a whole episode about fans and George Lucas. That Zoe was the character that everybody thought was so great, he was going to be the savior of the universe, and then the droids that are with him, like, they start turning their back on him because they think, oh, well, he doesn't really care about us. He doesn't like us. He's not doing what we want him to do. So we'll just get rid of him. And it's this whole episode, and it's so meta about fans and their response to the Maker, because that's what he's called, the Maker. And he even looks like George Lucas.
He does. I will say that you're right. He does kind of look like George Lucas.
And so my realization that it really was a whole episode where the undertones of it are about the relationship between fans to people who make things, and specifically fans of Star Wars, and their relationship with George Lucas, their love-hate relationship with him. I thought was just hysterical. And honestly, something I think all fans need to watch, just to remind yourself that you're not better than the Maker. It was just hysterical. And that episode, and then I'm trying to think. I really liked the episode where they go to Tatooine and they're doing the pod racing. I thought that was really funny. Because it brought back a lot of the Phantom Menace cues that they could do. They brought in Jabba the Hutt, which was really funny.
Some good Ram and Bash humor in that one.
Yes, really good humor with him. And come on, Ben Quadraneros was in the episode.
Was that the one with Boba Fett? Or was
Yes,
okay.
Boba Fett and Dengar are talking about, like, hey, how's your mother? And they're like, how's the family? And it's just hysterical. Like, they're having this whole, like, dude conversation. They even have, like, a secret handshake and everything. It's fabulous. It's a great episode.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a bad episode, you know. There's always, every episode that's come out has had something in it that I really, you know, either thought was really funny or, you know, just was heartfelt. You know, like I said, the series completely came out of nowhere for me, and has really exceeded all of my expectations. So at this point, it's almost like they could do no wrong. And I'm super excited for season 2 with some of the elements that they've already shown us. With, you know, the droid that's gonna be kind of hunting them down, MOC. That guy just looks awesome, and the stuff that we saw, the brief things that we saw in the episode that they showed at Celebration, has really solidified for me that that's going to be a really good character and a really intimidating character, as hard as it is to be intimidating as a Lego minifig. Nare was great. I love Nare as a character, but this is a whole different type of menace that they're going to have to fight against.
Yes, it really is. I think, you know, this show is, and I guess one of the things I kind of wanted to end on was, I mean, we don't need to rate the season because it's 5 stars. Like, it's an awesome season. But I kind of wanted to just kind of talk to the fans for a second. Why should you be watching this show? Why should you give it your support? And if we haven't already convinced you of that already, what would you say to fans, Aaron?
I would say for fans that might be hesitant to watch it, you know, I'm already seeing a positive reaction, because I think partially because they got a second season. A lot of people kind of hold out when something like this comes out, and they're like, okay, is it just going to be a one and done thing? Do I really want to invest my time into a show like this if it's just going to get canceled after one season? But once people saw that it got renewed and then it got nominated for all those Emmys, then suddenly you're like, wait, maybe there are a lot of Star Wars fans out there that are like, maybe this is something I should be paying attention to. So I'm already happy to see that the response has risen for the show. And, you know, we were kind of joking around about my podcast being the only podcast covering the show. I think that's going to change. You know, I think with anything in Star Wars, you know, now that it's kind of gained a little bit more attention, there's going to be more people that want to talk about it, and that's only going to be good for this show to get more people paying attention. But kind of my sales pitch for the show would just be, it's not, if you thought it was going to be what has come before with Lego Star Wars, where it's just a lot of slapstick humor and, you know, parody stuff, it's not that at all. It's much closer to something like Rebels, where you have characters that they're establishing storyline, there's growth with the characters, definitely a lot more humor, because it is a Lego show, so they're going to focus on the humor, but it's really funny, clever, smart humor. So yeah, I think if you haven't been watching it and you've been curious, this is a show you should be watching. And it's not canon, but it's not so far outside of canon that it's kind of like what they call canon adjacent, where they are telling the story in a way that the events that are happening could happen. You might not have the Lego elements, where ships can fall apart and be rebuilt and stuff like that, but the actual stories and characters and some of the events, they fit into the Star Wars story, into the Star Wars universe. So it doesn't take you out of it. So yeah, if you're not watching it yet, give it a shot.
One of the things that I love about the show is how much fun it is. You mentioned the fact that this is a storyline that's continuous. And I think one of the things that really surprised me is that this show has more connectivity sometimes than even Rebels. Like, each episode really is a puzzle piece to the next episode. And yet they do such a great job of making each episode kind of feel like its own thing, too. It's really well done. And maybe that's just because they only have 13 episodes, and so they're very good at putting all the puzzle pieces together. But I just really want to compliment them on creating a show that rewards you for watching them all in order, but also I can go and pull out any specific episode and just enjoy it for the silliness and the fun that happens in each episode. I would say my sales pitch is if you love Star Wars, I think you're going to love the Freemakers, because each episode really is just a celebration of what makes Star Wars so fun and so enjoyable. And I don't think anybody loves Star Wars more than the people who are making this show. And it shows in every single frame. It's apparent in every single in-joke that only like super fans would get. Every single reference that they use that's just kind of a throwaway. And every time that they make Cordy and Rowan and Xander go to Cloud City to save what? None other than Lando's cape. Because that's the most important thing. I mean, does it get any better than that? And actual Billy D doing the voice. So, I mean, this is definitely a show that everybody should be watching. And so I hope that everybody kind of enjoyed our love fest of this. My goal was really just to introduce this show to people who may not have gotten introduced to it, especially since we're going to be getting season 2. I also wanted to highlight my good friend Aaron, who does the best podcast devoted to it. So I really appreciate him coming on to talk about this with me and lend his expertise to the show. I hope that everybody will let us know what they think of it as they start watching it over on the Babel Conference on Twitter. These shows only come to you each and every week because we have a great associate producers here on the 602 Club and people that support the network through Patreon. Ken Tripp and Davis Grayson, they've been supporting the 602 Club from almost the beginning, and they do that through patreon.com. It's an expensive enterprise to put all this on the air for you each and every week on your podcatchers. Make sure all of these episodes come to you. Become part of the team. Help us make sure that happens. Patreon.com/TrekFM. That's the place to start. We've got some great ways we want to say thank you to you for doing that. And honestly, every little bit helps. Again, that's patreon.com/TrekFM. Aaron, man, last year, Dragon Con. This year, we got to hang out at Celebration. I know where people can find you, but let everybody know where they can be listening to you or find you online if they want to talk some Star Wars or anything else.
Well, the main ways that you can find me is through my podcasts. I have a few podcasts that I do. My Star Wars podcasts are Star Wars Bookworms, which is a Star Wars literature-focused podcast where we review all the comics and the books, and we just talk about anything that has to do with the literature side of Star Wars. And even we get into the movies and stuff too as well, because you can't help it. You have to, right? If Force Awakens comes out, Rogue One comes out, we're going to talk about that stuff too. But it's a podcast I do with Teresa Delgado, who is a way more popular podcaster than I am, so I've enjoyed that ride with her. And that's the one. And then I do another one called Star Scavengers, which we do Lego, Star Wars, and we focus on the Freemaker Adventures. I do that one with Jonah Marie Macias, who is also a way more popular podcaster than I am. See, I like to partner with people that are way more popular than me. But she's great to podcast with, and we have a lot of fun over there. Definitely recommend if you if you're just now starting to watch Freemaker Adventures, check out our podcast. We have some really good interviews with people that you don't typically hear interviews from Lucasfilm. We actually got we got lucky with some of the interviews that we've gotten so far, so I would definitely recommend people going over there and checking that out. And then I do a Doctor Who podcast as well called Bad Wolf Radio with my good friend Adam Farmer, which is a great time. So that's where you're going to find me on those different podcasts. All of them are on iTunes, easy to find if you search for them. And then if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at AVGoins, AVGOINS.
Well, I can say as an avid listener of all Aaron's podcasts, you should be listening to them. Bad Wolf Radio is great. If you love Doctor Who, it's a good podcast. So I really enjoy that show. Star Scavengers is great. And then, if you can't get enough Star Wars Book Talk, Star Wars Book Rooms is a blast. And I got to finally meet Teresa, too, at Star Wars.
Yeah, she's pretty cool.
So, yeah, she is pretty cool. So, she actually, was the inspiration for an episode that we just did on aggressive negotiations. So, with talking about taking Star Wars personally. Great stuff. You can find me on Twitter, MattRushing02. You can also find me on Instagram at MRushing. I'm here on the network, of course, with the 602 Club. You can find Star Wars The 602 Club collection as well. And The Orb with Chris Jones, where we're talking about Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And then I have mentioned I'm over on the Nerd Party Network doing Aggressive Negotiations with John Mills. We love talking Star Wars. We love going deep like we just did. We have a two-parter where it's me and him talking about those things together. I talk about my side, and then the next episode he talks about his side of the very personal nature of Star Wars for us. And what we connect to the most, what we've learned, all that kind of stuff. And I'm also doing a great podcast with Drea Kaufman where we're talking about Harry Potter. We walk through each and every chapter of the series. So we're going as in-depth, I think, as you possibly can. So we're at the Chamber of Secrets now, so make sure you check it out. It's easy to catch up with us. And if you've never read Harry Potter, it's the perfect time to do so because we're walking through it slow. And if you have read Harry Potter a million times, it's also kind of the perfect time to catch up with us because we've read it a million times too. So I hope everybody will check all of those things out for me and for Aaron. And thank you so much for joining us. And may the Force be with you.